SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
For over 30 years, Heron Gear Lexus has proudly served Mississippi with one simple mission: do things right from the start. Discover the difference. Heron Gear Lexus, where luxury meets integrity.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive.
Good morning. Welcome to the start of a new week. Coming off a long weekend for many of you. A lot of folks with Good Friday off. Some of you, some school-age kids, perhaps with Monday off as well. Following the Easter weekend, hope you had some time with family, some time with friends, and had the opportunity to be with people you care about yesterday on an Easter Sunday where we celebrate the resurrection of Jesus. And we're glad to be with you as we start a new week, a busy week here in SuperTalk Mississippi land. Busy week in the state of Mississippi. I'm Richard Cross, Lance in the studio. Thanks for joining us this morning. If you are in north central Mississippi right now, and really, I don't know, kind of like a diagonal swath of the state of Mississippi, you're getting wet this morning. You're waking up to rain, a little thunder popping, even a little bit of lightning. Lance said it wasn't like that on his way in on central Mississippi, but right now from, I don't know, just south of Greenville, diagonal all the way to Corinth, you've got a line of some light thunderstorms making their way through your area, moving off to the northeast. Going to have a lot of that throughout the course of the week. Good morning, Lance.
Good morning.
What's up, brother?
I hope everybody had a wonderful Easter. I know I did. And wanted to give a shout-out to a young gentleman named Russ, who I ran into at the breakfast joint, and he listened to me order, and he was like, I know that voice. I said, really? And he said, you're Lance. I said, yes, sir. He goes, you're on In the Mornings with Richard. I love you guys. I said, man, thank you so much for saying hello to me this morning. And then I got to hang out with some great folks yesterday, Mike Martinez and his family, and Michael Sojourner, and then mine. But wonderful day. So I can't complain, and no rain right now. So
there you go. We got it coming down in sheets right now.
Sheets,
in fact, I was a little later getting into the studio than I intended to be. Left you hanging. I did send you a message. I'm like, I'm awake, man. I'm coming.
Time, though. Yeah, I wasn't worried.
But I was like, if it's gonna slack up, I might save getting a few raindrops on my head. But
because you got to
leave
leave the house to get to the studio.
Yeah.
You got a nice little setup. Somebody was asking me the other day, like, where does Richard have his studio? I'm like, man, he has got the setup. He's living life, the good life.
It's a cool spot.
Yeah, it's a great spot.
Cool spot. South Hillo, you got thunderstorms likely this morning. Got a chance of scattered thunderstorms throughout the day and into the afternoon. High of 72. Winds out of the southwest at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Your chance of rain today, according to the people that put out the weather forecast, they say 100%, which always feels a little risky.
Yeah, that's going out on a limb.
Some days you just know it's going to happen. Greenwood, thunderstorms this morning. Cloudy skies later in the day. High of 75. 90% chance of rain for you. Decatur, a little farther south. Cloudy with some thunderstorms developing later in the day. High near 80 in Decatur today. Your winds out of the south and southwest at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Chance of rain 90%. Down in Tylertown, thunderstorms, high of 81. Winds out of the south at 5 to 10. Chance of rain 80%. So, regardless of where you are today in the state of Mississippi, pretty good chance you're going to get wet at some point. We'll see, though. Maybe you fall into that 10 to 20%. You just catch a break, and you don't get the wet stuff today. Although, it's kind of the time of year where we're supposed to get a little bit of rain. It's been mostly dry where I am, Lance, for the last couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah.
You got all that pollen, and that has subsided a little bit, but some new flowers planted, some new shrubs out. They could use some of God's watering as opposed to just whatever you put to it.
Yeah, God's water is the best water.
That's right.
The roses look great, but right now they're starting to wilt a bit. Grass is looking a little dingy. I'm all in on a little God's rain today. I don't know about you. As long as it's not a gully washer. We don't want to. I don't want it to go all day. When I get off work, I want it to be done, and I want to go hang out outside. But,
that's right.
Yeah, love to have a little dampening. It is getting a little dusty again. I can tell in my sinuses.
It doesn't take long either. It can turn on you in a hurry. A good day for us yesterday as well. Church as a family yesterday morning. Got together at my in-laws for kind of a later in the afternoon lunch. Just not like we were planning to eat at 3 o'clock or anything like that. It just happened to be about 2 o'clock when we sat down, and kind of the traditional the traditional Easter. We had ham and turkey and some deviled eggs and some salad and some rolls and.
Speaking my language on the deviled eggs there.
Oh, a little sweet potato casserole mixed in there.
And on that too.
When you say not to be contentious, but on the C Spire text line, your intention actually is to be contentious when you say, "Isn't it all God's water?" Well, I mean, yeah, kind of, but. Surely at 6:11 on this Monday morning, you knew we were talking about the difference in rain and you putting a hose in your hand and holding it out or pressing the button on the sprinkler system in your yard. Surely you knew that was the case. Good morning. Have a cup of coffee. You need it. Yeah. We're behind. Hold off on the cream and sugar. You need to go straight black right out of the gate this morning. Got some birthdays today. How about this one? Born in 1887. Do you know the name Joe McCarthy?
Oh, yeah.
Does that name ring a bell for you? Maybe not that Joe McCarthy. How about this American Hall of Fame baseball manager? The Cubs, the Yankees, the Red Sox. In his tenure with the New York Yankees, Joe McCarthy led his ball club to the World Series 8 times. And they won it 7. 1932, 36, 37, 38, 39, 41, and 43. He's kind of a bum, though. He never won one with the Cubs, never won one with the Red Sox. It was only when he had a good job. When he had the job of the greatest franchise in the history of professional sports, racked him up.
Yeah, kind of hard to argue with that, though. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, I'm just pushing people's buttons a little bit.
I love it, too. I love it. Early in the morning on a Monday.
Joe McCarthy had his 10 commandments for success. You tell me which one of these that you argue with, Lance. 10 commandments for success from Joe McCarthy, the Hall of Fame baseball manager. Nobody ever became a ball player by walking after a ball.
Yeah.
You will never become a 300 hitter unless you take the bat off your shoulder.
Yeah, exactly.
An outfielder who throws in back of a runner is locking the barn after the horse is stolen. Keep your head up, and you may not have to keep it down. When you start to slide, slide. He who changes his mind may have to change a good leg for a bad one. Do not alibi on bad hops. Anyone can field the good ones. Always run them out. You never can tell. Do not quit. Try not to find too much fault with the umpire. You cannot expect them to be as perfect as you. And a pitcher who hasn't control hasn't anything.
Ooh, now that's when my dad would, if we were having a conversation right now, that's what he would always go to control first.
There you go.
I have to agree with that, too.
Queen Elizabeth II was born in 1926 on this day. United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. She is the country's longest reigning monarch. Served from 1952 until her death in 2022. Born in London. We don't normally do deaths, but I thought a couple of fairly significant ones here. Mark Twain passed away on this day, 1910. Of course, the author of The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, died at the age of 74. Born in 1835, passed away on this day in 1910. Another guy passed away on this day, 2016. American funk, rock, R&B singer, songwriter, and musician with songs like 1999 and Purple Rain. Prince Rogers Nelson died on this day from an accidental overdose of painkillers at the age of 57.
Tragedy.
What a talent.
Yeah, amazing artist.
What a talent.
Man, you have bypassed like an amazing list of actors this morning. Tony Danza, 74. That's a pretty good one there. Anthony Quinn.
Who's the boss?
Yeah, Anthony Quinn. Lawrence
Okay.
of Arabia, you know.
Yeah?
You got Charles Grodin in here. Come on, man. We can't bypass Charles Grodin.
How am I bypassing them when I'm leaving the low-hanging fruit
I know.
for you?
I'm messing with you. You make it easy for me, buddy. Make it too easy. James McAvoy, also 46 years old today. Pretty good
We got
list
more
there.
coming up for you. We got news headlines. A couple of other things that happened on this day when we come back. Just getting started. Mornings with Richard Cross. Thanks for being with us to start your week.
From the
Mornings with Richard Cross. What's up?
Let's get the show going.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
I've seen the bright lights of Memphis and the Commodore Hotel. And underneath
On this day in 1956, Elvis Presley's first hit record, Heartbreak Hotel, went to number one. You wonder why? Included were the title track, Whole Lot of Shaking Going On, Jailhouse Rock, All Shook Up, and You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog. All on the same record.
That was like a tragedy back then, too. You know, they never liked to stack them like that.
Well, they sure stacked
Yeah.
them. Of course, most of his records stacked
Oh, man,
them.
yeah, he just had hits. He was a hit maker.
Sticking with the music theme, in 1984, after 37 weeks, Michael Jackson's album Thriller knocked off as the top album, but for good reason. Out came the movie soundtrack, Footloose.
Kenny Loggins was killing it back then, man.
Ooh, I mean, from Footloose, rolling shortly thereafter into Top Gun.
Yeah, and there wasn't like, and he had Over the Top, too, with Sly Stallone and the arm wrestling moves.
Got that one.
Yeah, man, he was all over the place. Dude, I mean, again, another hit maker. It was like there was a run in there with that guy. He was just buying houses because he didn't know what to do with all the money he was making.
Yeah, just like Sir Crush a lot there for a little while. On this day in 1986, I think you're going to remember this. If you are 6 years old, 5 years old, or older, I think you remember this. Because I was 5 on my way to 6 when this happened. This day in 1986, in a television news special, Geraldo Rivera opens Al Capone's vault on live television, and they find absolutely nothing.
Yeah, nada limonada. I remember watching that one going, well, who's Al Capone again? I was young, yeah.
Millions upon millions upon millions watched on that particular day. How about this? This day, 1989.
People will come, Ray.
You're broke, Ray. You sell now or you lose everything.
The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball. America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers. It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again. But baseball has marked the time. This field, this game, is a part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that once was good, and it could be again. Oh, people will come, Ray. People will most definitely come.
The great James Earl Jones in Field of Dreams.
Oh, he wasn't talking about ethanol. Okay, my bad.
This day in 1989, world premiere of the sports fantasy film Field of Dreams in Dubuque, Iowa, based on W.P. Kinsella's novel Shoeless Joe, starring Kevin Costner, James Earl Jones, baseball.
D.B. Sweeney, wasn't he? Who was the Shoeless Joe?
Ray Liotta.
Ray Liotta, that's right. I'm thinking of 8 Men Out, where Shoeless Joe was D.B. Sweeney.
Burt Lancaster also in that one.
Yeah,
and finally,
that's right.
On this day in 2019, Ukrainian comedian, guy by the name of Volodymyr Zelensky, wins the country's presidential election in a landslide. Some of you have sent this message. We are aware. The Pope has passed away. Pope Francis passed away at approximately 1:30 Central Time. So, what is that, around 6:30 in Vatican City? 6:30 or 7:30 in the morning? 7:35 in the morning in Vatican City, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the home of the Father, his entire life dedicated to the service of the Lord and of his church. That is the statement from Cardinal Kevin Farrell. Francis became Pope in 2013. Argentinian-born Jorge Mario Bergoglio.
Very Italian.
He was very Italian. Took over as the Catholic Church's influence was waning during the troubled papacy of Pope Benedict the 16th, whose surprise resignation led to Francis's election. Don't know who the next pope will be, and I have not checked Please, I am not being insensitive when I say this. I have not checked the betting markets to see what the names are that are most likely. I did read a couple of stories with some names that were out there, including an Italian cardinal as perhaps the front runner. We shall see. I know growing up a time or two that there was a new pope that was elected, and everybody was watching for the papal smoke emanating from the Vatican, and that's when you knew that a new pope had been voted on and confirmed by the group of cardinals. Francis recently put together and extended the terms of the cardinals that would make up the voting body, so there would be no issue with confirmation of the next pope. Really is a mystery in the way that it goes. I don't know if because of some of the issues that have existed in the Catholic Church over the last couple of decades, this is more significant, less significant as it used to be. I don't know. But certainly a big deal, and all of the news sites, all of the news channels, everybody is leading with the death of Pope Francis this morning. Not entirely unexpected, hospitalized with pneumonia just a few weeks ago, had made a bit of a comeback and had kind of sparred verbally with the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. Interestingly enough, in terms of timing, just yesterday, J.D. Vance had an audience with the Pope. How that went probably depends on the news coverage that you read of it. Some of them saying that he didn't actually get an audience with the Pope. There was just a photo op, and others saying, yeah, they talked. Regardless, J.D. Vance in person with the Pope just one day before his passing.
They say, according to bookmakers, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines is the favorite.
Okay.
as that has just come across.
You can bet on anything.
The wire, yeah, literally about 5 minutes ago. So,
Ukraine is under pressure to respond this week to a series of far-reaching Trump administration ideas for how to end the war with Russia by granting concessions to Russia, including potential U.S. recognition of Russia's 2014 annexation of Crimea and excluding Kyiv from joining NATO, or Kiev if you prefer. The ideas were outlined in a confidential document, so of course we've got it, presented by senior Trump administration officials to their Ukrainian counterparts in Paris on Thursday. They were also shared with European officials at the day-long meeting. The United States is now waiting for Kiev's response, which is expected to come at a meeting of U.S., Ukrainian, and European officials in London later this week. If there is a convergence among the American, European, and Ukrainian positions, the proposals could then be floated to Moscow to put pressure on Ukraine and Russia. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Friday that this administration may pause its negotiating efforts if headway isn't made. Rubio said this: the Ukrainians have to go back home. They have to run it by their president. They have to take into account their views on all of this. But we need to figure out here now, within a matter of days, whether this is a doable thing in the short term. Because if it's not, then we're just ready to move on. U.S. diplomatic push is intended to set the stage for a ceasefire, largely along current battle lines in the conflict. Got a couple of other news headlines for you. Got some sports headlines as well. First, though, we remind you that the ceasefire text line is open, 601-879-4395. Ceasefire is on your team with the best in wireless, the best in home internet with fiber to the home, and the best in business IT services. Check them out online at cspire.com. Cspire, inspired by you. Love to hear from you. 601-879-4395. We got more after this on Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Maybe someday they'll show me some kind of sign on the blue side of the mountain where the sun don't ever shine.
From the Super. Grab another cup of coffee and start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
We chased Lady Luck till we finally struck Bonanza. With a gun and a rope and a hat full of hope, we planted our family tree.
Yes, sir.
We got a hold of a pot full of gold Bonanza. With a horse and a saddle and a ring full of cattle, how rich could a fella be?
How can he?
On this land we put our brand, our pride is the name.
I feel like some people needed that this morning. You can't sit still when you listen. Like you're gonna snap, you're gonna tap your foot, you're gonna clap, you're gonna nod your head, you're gonna do something, and maybe you need that something to get you stirring a little bit on a Monday morning. That maybe it's just a sleepy Monday morning, maybe it's a cloudy Monday morning, maybe it's a rainy and stormy Monday morning where you are in the state of Mississippi, wherever that is. Thanks for making us part of the start of your day. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. Did you see this news? I think it was Friday afternoon when this came out. Ole Miss officials announced on Thursday, that the Philadelphia Eagles superstar wide receiver A.J. Brown will deliver the university's commencement address on May 10th. Chancellor Glenn Blois says it is an honor to welcome A.J. Brown back to campus as our 2025 commencement speaker. He is the epitome of excellence, determination, and service, all characteristics that our graduates will need as they embark on the next steps in their own journey, from his record-setting career at Ole Miss to becoming both a Super Bowl champion and dedicated philanthropist. AJ represents the very best of what can be achieved through perseverance and the commitment to making a difference. For his part, A.J. Brown said, I remember being here at Ole Miss, wondering what my future would look like, dreaming big, but not really knowing what was ahead. To stand up there now with experience, with some success under my belt, and with the same hunger I had back then, it's a blessing. It means they see something in me worth sharing, something the next class can take with them. It's humbling, it's emotional, and it's a reminder that no matter how far you go, never forget where you came from.
Yeah, he's got a lot he can offer that graduating class, I can promise you. Great choice on the commencement. Yeah.
I first read that, and I was like, what do I think about that? And then I was like, what do current graduating students want from their commencement speaker? Well, they probably want that person to be brief. You have a few that genuinely want to be inspired. Some that are like, hey, could you make me laugh? Could we get Jerry Seinfeld? But when you start thinking about the number of college graduations that are out there, I mean, you can only have the President of the United States speak at so many commencement addresses, and some would shy away from that because it's divisive. That's fine. Others would think it's absolutely fantastic. So why not go with one of your own who has been remarkably successful, coming off a Super Bowl title? I think it makes sense. I hope A.J. Brown sees it as a massive honor as well.
Yeah, and a Mississippi kid, too, on top of that.
Yeah. Several years ago, I was asked to speak at Oxford High School's commencement. And I remember thinking, wait, what? Why would you want to hear from me?
You're an inspiration, Richard.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I was or not, but I do remember just being incredibly honored.
Oh, what a cool honor. I don't think anybody's going to be asking me to do that. So, but yeah,
yeah.
Congratulations. That's
it was a lot of fun, though.
Yeah,
that was a really neat deal. I was in Hoover, Birmingham, for the SEC baseball tournament, and drove home to speak at graduation, and then went right back. It was very, very cool for me. Former Pentagon spokesperson says the Department of Defense is in disarray under Pete Hegseth. And I don't think that this is one of those just disgruntled former employees, because it's John Olyott who is making the statement. He was a spokesperson for the department, was a Pete Hegseth ally, and actually resigned. He was not part of the group of 3 that was fired last week who had been close allies. Olyott says it's been a month of total chaos at the Pentagon. From leaks of sensitive operational plans to mass firings, the dysfunction is now a major distraction for the president, who deserves better from his senior leadership. Pentagon, as you would expect, has pushed back through a spokesperson. Olyott also said President Donald Trump has a strong record of holding his top officials to account. Given that, it's hard to see Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth remaining in his role for much longer. There is a massive call from Democrats for Pete Hegseth to resign. Charlie Kirk on X says that is exactly the reason that you stand by him. If that's what all of them want, then clearly you're doing something right. In the last week, 3 top Pentagon officials were suspended and later fired as the agency was working to curtail leaks within the organization. A few sports headlines for you. Southern Miss takes 2 of 3 at home this weekend from Georgia State. It was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. J.B. Middleton, surprise, surprise, was good again in Game 1. What a season he has had for the Golden Eagles. 8-1 on Thursday night. Georgia State came back and split the series with a 10-run rule win in 7 innings on Friday. And then on Saturday, it was a 15-9 win for Southern Miss. Golden Eagles moved to 16-6, I think it is. Sorry, my computer is scrolling.
17-5 total. in conference.
In conference play. Sorry, there we go. 27, possessed computer all of a sudden. 27-13 overall. 12-6 in conference play. 17-5 at home.
That's what I meant. Yeah, 17-5 at home. That's what
for
I thought you were referring to.
For the Golden Eagles. I'm going to read for you verbatim what I wrote about Ole Miss and Mississippi State because I wrote the exact same thing. Now, maybe this is overly harsh. This was late at night writing a headline for myself.
Yeah, I liked your honesty there.
Ole Miss played like crap in the first 2 games and lost to South Carolina, rallied in Game 3 for a run rule win to salvage 1. That was what I wrote for Ole Miss. Here's what I wrote for State. State played like crap in the first 2 games and lost to Florida. Things looked dicey late on Sunday, but the Dogs exploded for 6 in the bottom of the 8th to salvage a win. Now, the landscape going into the series was different for Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Rebels have built themselves some cushion as it pertains to postseason play. Mike Bianco, though, has talked tons through the years about it just being 1 of 30. Whichever game you're playing is 1 of 30 in the conference, and all 30 of them count exactly the same. But when you're playing a team that is 2-13 in conference play going in, you know that you need that 1 of 30 at least 2 times and maybe 3. Now, if you are only going to win 1 game, especially if it's on the road, which one do you win, Lance?
I would have much preferred to take the Thursday night game when they did nothing for 9 innings to let a guy that threw 5 innings his whole career and complete gamed him.
Yeah, I hear you, but you're missing where I'm going.
I got you. I mean, but
if you got to get on that bus or get on that plane, you'd rather do so with a win in your hip pocket on that day.
Oh, I agree, but watching that Thursday night game, I'm like, how did you do
tough.
this? Yeah. Why? Ole Miss?
So the Rebels come back home this weekend. And they got the Vanderbilt Commodores coming in. Ole Miss 10-8 in SEC play. Everything's still in front of them. Hosting opportunity, national seed, postseason play, all that stuff. Got to play better than they played this weekend. Mississippi State, I mean, there were 3 games there for the taking for the Bulldogs. Florida took 2 of the 3. On Friday night with a national television audience on the SEC network, the Gators got game number 1. Well, I don't know if that one was really there for the taking, but it was a late surge, and it turned into a 13-3 win for Florida. Wasn't State ahead in that game 3-2?
Yeah, right out of the gate, if I remember.
Hold on.
I know they were way up on the second game.
I was watching that.
The second game, they were way up, and then you look down, and it was like, oh, goodness.
State was ahead 3-2 going into the top of the 6th. And then Florida scored 7-2, and it turned into a game over early for the Bulldogs. And then it was 11-8, Florida winning in game 2. In that one, Mississippi State had a 6-3 lead going into the top of the 7th. And it felt like, here we go again for the Bulldogs yesterday as Mississippi State gave up 5 runs in the bottom of the 8th. But they still carried a 1-run lead into the 9th inning. I bungled that. Florida kind of chipped away, and they cut it to 1 with 3 runs in the top of the 8th inning. That made it 9-8 Mississippi State. Bulldogs, though, gave themselves some insurance in the bottom of the 8th. 5 runs, bottom of the 8th. They win at 14-8. They salvage 1. Dogs are 6-12 in SEC play, and they have got work to do with 12 remaining in the regular season. We got a lottery update coming up for you next. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Take a deep dive into the news and debates driving the day, all on your ride to work. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
You know what we need
a winner.
We need some winners. Talking about these numbers that didn't yield any wins? That's no fun. We got some winners to tell you about in a minute. Not in Lotto America. The jackpot is growing with Lotto America. Why is it, Lance, that sometimes when I click on an email and it's part of a string of emails, it goes to the very first one, and sometimes it goes to a previous one? I don't know the answer to that, but here we are. There was no jackpot winner on Saturday night. The estimated jackpot for tonight with Lotto America, $31.45 million. Estimated cash value of nearly $14.5 million. Saturday night's numbers, 4, 11, 23, 29, 36. Unless you had those, you were a loser. Starball was 9. All-Star bonus multiplier was 3. There was no jackpot winner in the Powerball on Saturday night. Tonight's jackpot, $139 million. You're taking $64 million home. That's the estimated cash value. If you take the one-time payout, Saturday night's numbers, 7, 25, 37, 39, 63. The Powerball was 1. The Power Play multiplier was 3.
Well, if you're rolling with double play, numbers from Saturday, April 19th, 2, 3, 21, 55, 63. Powerball at 12. Mega Millions, you had a jackpot winner. A jackpot worth $112 million was purchased at South Euclid, Ohio. Estimated jackpot for Tuesday, April 22nd, has been reset at $50 million.
See? That's all new.
That's how it works.
That's the new deal, and you don't go back to $20 million to start the new jackpot anymore. Those $5 tickets mean a $50 million starting point for the jackpot.
Well, you get to take home basically the starting point beforehand, $22.4 million. And numbers from Friday the 18th, 5, 13, 15, 17, 28, Mega Ball of 1.
No jackpot winner on Mississippi Match 5. It's up to $76,000. Sunday night's numbers were 4, 5, 7, 14, and 20.
Well, the Sunday cash $500 midday numbers, 916. Evening, 726. Cash $5,000 midday. Those numbers, 41.79. Evening, 93.87. Fireball of 1, both in the midday and the evening. Cash Pop of 7 in the midday with a 5 in the evening.
Lottery claims office last week paid out a little over $1 million, while retailers across the state, as is about their average, paid out almost $4.5 million to winners. The adrenaline continues with the 2025 NASCAR Powerball Playoff, where Mississippi is sending 15 lucky winners into high-speed action. The second winner, going to be announced this Thursday, the 24th of April, will receive $8,500 in cash, plus a $3,500 early bird bonus for a total of $12,000. You've got until 9 o'clock Thursday morning to enter. Sign up today to be a Mississippi Lottery Insider at mslottery.com, and you will automatically receive the entry form. All winners qualify for the National NASCAR Powerball Playoff, racing toward a $1 million grand prize. You had some cash for winners on Friday. A Charleston man won $1,200 from a ticket at Double Quick in Louisville. Hattiesburg woman won $3,303 on a ticket from Junior Food Mart in Petal. Poplarville man won $2,500 on a ticket from Minute Mart in Poplarville. And a Hazelhurst woman won $1,350 on a ticket from Raja Food Mart in Hazelhurst.
And the cash pop winners, Louisville woman, $1,250 richer on a ticket from the Exxon gas station in Carthage. And then a couple Mega Millions winners here. A Biloxi man won $1,500 on a ticket from the racetrack, $2,497 in Ocean Springs. And then a Clinton man, $1,500 richer on a ticket purchased at the Quick Food Mart in Pearl.
How about the old $5, 5 times the joy, 5X the cash scratch-off? A Myrtle woman taking home $100,000 on a ticket that she bought at Regal Express in New Albany.
Regal indeed.
Regal indeed. $10 extreme payday scratch-off. Boonville man won $5,000 on a ticket from Blue Sky in Boonville. And you had a Guntown man win $2,000 on a ticket from Regal Express in New Albany. That was the place to be last week on Friday. That was a $20 scratch-off. And then finally you had some winners on a $20 20X Cash Blitz. Summit woman got $1,000 on a ticket from Be Quick in Macomb. Meridian man won $2,000 on a ticket from Shell Food Mart in Marion, and a Columbia man won $1,000 on a ticket from Keith's Superstore in Sumrall. 7 o'clock hour is just around the corner. We're going to be keeping an eye on DeSoto County today and tomorrow. They have been the subject of some court hearings related to redistricting, and the drawing of the lines is right now in the hands of the governor and the Secretary of the State and the Attorney General. We're going to get a redrawn map for DeSoto County in terms of the districting lines by tomorrow. We'll get you up to date on that story. Gerard Gibert going to join us in the 7 o'clock hour. He's got a big day coming up tomorrow. We'll tell you about that. Mandy Gunasekara is going to stop by also in the 7 o'clock hour. And then JT Mitchell, he'll be along from the SuperTalk Mississippi News team at 8:37. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks for starting your day with us. You have permission to have another cup of coffee. Get that in the break. Catch the news. We're back with you in just a few minutes.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
From Duck Hill to Alligator, Mississippians start their day the right way. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Today is the 21st of April, 2025. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. This hour of the show is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you are not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They provide a full range of employer services, plus a custom plan that fits you. Give them a call today, 601-206-7966, or go to mwgemployerservices.com. Thanks for being with us this morning. There is a story. Got to go back to last Tuesday. Really, it goes way back farther than that. But last Tuesday, for the most recent development in DeSoto County, a 3-judge federal panel last Tuesday ordered the Mississippi legislature to come up with a new Senate district map in DeSoto County that will give black voters a fair chance to elect black candidates to represent them in the legislature. This story and kind of summary comes from the DeSoto Times. The unanimous ruling gave the State Board of Election Commissioners 7 days to submit a new map for approval. The ruling stated, "We gave the Mississippi legislature an opportunity to remedy those violations by drawing new maps in 3 geographic interest areas. The legislature accepted that invitation, but plaintiffs object to the results. We find that the new maps remedy the violations, except as to the Senate districts in the DeSoto County interest area." So the federal court ruled in favor of the state NAACP in their 2022 lawsuit. So you got to go back 3 years for that, which claims claimed that the legislature's redrawn districts at the time did not include enough African American representation. You got to remember that your legislative districts are supposed to be drawn to be representative of the population in a particular area. As a result of the lawsuit, the maps were redrawn to include 2 new majority-minority districts, one in the Hattiesburg area and one in DeSoto County. The map that was approved by the legislature moved a portion of Hernando into a district that included parts of Tate County, Tunica County, Quitman County, and Coahoma County. And it would have required Senator Michael McClendon to run against Senator Reginald Jackson, a Democrat from Marks, in a district that would now, or would then, be 52.4% African American. So Michael McClendon, with the help of the DeSoto County Board of Supervisors, fought back against Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann, and he unsuccessfully offered an amendment map that would have met the court's requirements and kept Hernando in one district. He called the legislature's approval of the redistricting map a disaster for the people of DeSoto County. That was a direct quote, because it would weaken the county's political impact by potentially having someone outside the area who doesn't understand the needs of the people representing them in the state Senate. In a statement, McClendon said that he feels vindicated because his map was spot on and showed how the redistricting would hurt him in DeSoto County. Now, the DeSoto County Board of Supervisors hired outside legal counsel on behalf of the voters of DeSoto County to explore all remedies available to contest the new district map. Mark Gardner is the president of the Board of Supervisors in DeSoto County. He was relieved to hear that the state will go back and reconsider the maps. He said the map that was submitted, we just don't think that was fair to voters in DeSoto County. McClendon claims that Governor Tate Reeves called him about his map and that he, Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann, Secretary of State Michael Watson, and Attorney General Lynn Fitch now have to submit a new map within 7 days. And McClendon says there is a strong possibility that my map will be submitted. Went on to say, let's see. I believe the votes of support from the House members in DeSoto helped as part of a team effort along with the City of Hernando and the DeSoto County Board of Supervisors. We stopped it. Thank you all. The court did not say whether the special election scheduled to take place in the new districts would be affected. Went on to say that the timeline is tight. We remain committed to special elections in November, but as noted during oral arguments, allowing defendants to submit competing maps will necessarily require an opportunity for plaintiffs to respond. We need not address all that right now, but if necessary, the court may be forced to order a revised pre-election schedule. So, a little bit of a mess in DeSoto County. And depending on how that line is ultimately redrawn, affecting Hernando, you could have other districts that are affected, resulting in special elections in other districts. So it's currently in the hands of the lieutenant governor, the governor, the attorney general, and the secretary of state. And there's some question as to whether or not they are going to submit a redrawn district map. They are going to submit the McClendon map. And then what is the court ultimately going to do? Are they going to perhaps accept the original map that the NAACP wanted in their redrawing of the lawsuit back in 2022? And, I mean, we got a message here that said, so gerrymander and give a minority a majority. Claims of gerrymandering kind of fall on deaf ears for me, because that is not that's not a tactic that is unique to one party or the other. If you are in charge of drawing redistricting lines, then you are going to, as closely as you can, draw those lines in a way that meets whatever standard is legally necessary, but gives you the best advantage to win elections. Period. It doesn't matter if it's Republicans or it's Democrats that are drawing the lines. And the crux of all this was you were going to have sitting senators that were going to have to run or rerun for a seat that they comfortably were holding. And Thomas, with regard to your gerrymander and give a minority a majority, I think legally that's what you have to do based on the way the lines are drawn. Again, if you have an area like the way your district lines are drawn have to be representative of the people that are within your district. Ceasefire text line, every time we try to move past racism, we come up with new ways to bring it to the forefront. Maybe instead of redrawing lines to give black candidates a better opportunity to win, they just campaign harder. How about that? Are you saying that the Benny Thompson district isn't gerrymandered? No, I think I pretty clearly explained that. That whoever's in charge at the time when the district lines are drawn draws the lines in their favor. But tomorrow is the deadline, with that ruling coming last Tuesday, with 7 days to submit the lines to the 3-panel district court or the federal court. We're going to see where this goes. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. It's not going to change the makeup of the Senate in the state of Mississippi. Republicans are going to have a majority in the Senate regardless of how this particular district line is drawn, but it certainly could be impactful for folks in the northwest corner of the state, whether you're talking about the Hernando area or Quitman or Tunica or Coahoma counties. And certainly those groups are angling for a district that is more favorable to what would be a majority population there, or a majority minority population there. So we'll see. You can read that whole story if you want to and try to make even more sense of it from the DeSoto Times-Tribune. We'll keep you up to date on it as well. Big day coming up tomorrow for SuperTalk Mississippi and our good friend Gerard Gibert. We will talk to him about that coming up next. Gerard's our first guest on this Monday morning. Thanks for being with us on Mornings with Richard Cross right here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Mississippi, you're starting your day off right.
Welcome to
Mornings with Richard Cross here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. Thanks for being with us on this Monday morning. If you're in parts of the Delta, you're north central Mississippi, northeast Mississippi, you are getting raindrops on your head this morning. A wet day to the start of a wet start to the day for much of North Mississippi, and most of the state going to get some rain as we move throughout the course of the day. I feel like at great inconvenience, our good friend Gerard Gibert has gotten up early. Had to set the alarm clock a little earlier this morning than maybe he normally would have. He doesn't go to work until 10 o'clock most days. And so being in the studio at 20 minutes after 7, big day. Gerard, good morning. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me. You fellas get up kind of early, don't you?
It's a fairly early start. And when it's, you got like the little bit of thunder and some flashes of lightning and you can hear the rain, it makes it extra hard to get out of bed.
Yeah, well, working overtime today, Richard.
And tomorrow as well.
Right.
So you got a show at 10 this morning, and then you're going to jump on an airplane and head to our nation's capital. One of the things that the Trump administration has said from day one in this second term is that they are going to be more inclusive of media entities that represent the entire country, not just some of the mainstream and legacy news outlets. And as part of that, they have set up a Radio Row that's going to be, I think, in the Eisenhower office building, part of the White House complex, and you're going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah, that is exactly right. I was contacted Friday morning around 11:30 via text by Bryn Jeffers. She is the White House Media Affairs Coordinator. I think she's the director of that team. And she sent me a text, And it was an invitation to participate in this event tomorrow. It's described as Radio Row, a Radio Row event, as you said, at the Eisenhower Executive Office Building on the White House complex. I'm literally reading from her text.
Yeah.
And
did she apologize for the short notice?
No, she did not. And of course, I'm getting this thinking this is a scam. I mean, that was my first thought. Was this can't be real? This just sounds, a little too fishy. And so, of course, I started looking her up. I mean, that's this cool thing about this internet. You can find a bunch of information in a hurry. So I looked her up. Surely enough, that is the name of the person who is the White House Media Affairs Director. So check. And then I did a reverse lookup on her phone number, and I got the initials of her name. You got to pay money to get the full name, but and I didn't do that. Once I got the initials, I said, okay. And then it's a New Jersey number. It's an area code from New Jersey. Yeah. She attended Penn State.
Okay.
When you look her background up. And so I sent it to my friend, Congressman Michael Guest. I said, can you have somebody in your office maybe do a little lookup on this? And he came back with the same information I had. So I said, what the heck? I'm just going to call the number. And I did, and she answered.
Okay.
And she sounded legitimate at that point, and we started talking. And so I asked her, how did you find me? I mean, that's the natural question. How did you find me? And so on Friday, I did a panel discussion on Newsmax, like an hour before I got this text.
Okay.
And she told me that. She said, we saw you on Newsmax. And at that point, I said, okay. So we have. I went to work, of course, with our team to see if we could pull this off. And gee, I felt so bad about imposing on them on Friday. We were off, of course, Good Friday, but I did, and they were extremely responsive. With our president, CEO Kim, and our content director Alex, and of course you got to drag along. You know him well, Houston McDavid, with our engineer with all the equipment, and he's the one that can make it go. And so we got on 2 or 3 conference calls discussing this, and of course Houston sent me a list of questions for Bryn, and I sent those to hers, and she responded. So, I mean, that's the bottom line. It is, according to her text, the purpose is to interview cabinet secretaries and other administration officials about the first 100 days of the Trump administration. And that's it. And I said, well, how will we know who's available and, what that schedule looks like? She said it's all based on their availability, and we'll find that out tomorrow. So
okay.
That's all I know at this point. Now, if I've been duped, I guess I'm taking a trip to Washington.
Yeah, you can have a nice meal and spend a night in a hotel and then come back home. Doesn't sound like that's the case. You're going, though, Gerard, at a pretty interesting time because there is a lot going on. That's been the case for the entire first 3 months of this administration. They have been operating at a chaotic pace, but you've got questions about what's going on at the Department of Defense with people talking about Pete Hegseth and his leadership. You've obviously got the issue with the prison in El Salvador and the stance that the courts have taken and the stance that the administration has taken. There's the tariff conversation. There is a lot that is happening right now in Washington, D.C. Feels like a pretty good time to be there.
Yeah, there is. And, it just depends on who we're able and fortunate to get on the show. And I'm thinking, how in the world do you prepare for this wide range of possible topics and issues that you could be dealing with? You know what that's like. But you're right. There is much activity. And I think that's the point, honestly, Richard, of them holding this event is that have you ever seen so much activity as we approach the 100-day mark in an administration? I can't think of it, but we shouldn't be surprised. That's Mr. Trump's nature.
Gerard, I was thinking yesterday, and that's dangerous sometimes. if I said to you, hey, you got to give the Trump administration a letter grade for their first 100 days, What letter grade would you give them?
Yeah, I think I'd give them a B. And the only reason I would stop short of an A is that we still have lots of unanswered questions about the tariff situation, and that is wreaking havoc on the economy. The markets are down again this morning. And I think the markets are down, Richard, because we don't have a tariff deal yet. If we have a trade deal. If we had a trade deal, just one, I think we'd see the markets react differently. But there was some expectation of that. The other thing I would say is we're bouncing around so much that sometimes I think the messaging gets lost a little bit, and so I give them a little bit of a demerit, if you could call it that, from an A to a B. But the one thing that was front and center during the campaign, immigration, there's no question that that's an A. All you have to do is look at the border and the situation there now versus what it was during the prior administration. You're right. There's some controversial moves by this administration that the courts will have to sort out, but you got to give them an A plus there. And it was just a message. It was just, hey, don't come here.
Yeah, and to me, the thing that stands out really more than anything for the Trump administration for the first 3 months is they spent 6 months to a year leading up to Election Day telling you, if you elect us, this is what we are going to do, and have largely followed through on it. So whether you believe in tariffs, good, bad, or otherwise, they told you we're putting tariffs in place.
Yeah.
Whether or not you're for shutting down the border or not, they told you we're shutting down the border and there's going to be a process. That's going to be step one. Then we're going to go to deportations with criminals. That's going to be step two. And then it will branch out from there. And that's what they've done.
Yeah, I agree. And then remember, day one, all the executive orders essentially ending all the DEI stuff across the spectrum of government, which is one of the first things Joe Biden did was impose it throughout government. He reversed that. He signed executive orders to roll back lots of the regulations applying to exploration and production of fossil fuels in this country. And honestly, even though we're seeing some pullback on the price of oil, those really haven't even kicked in yet. Yeah. We haven't even seen the benefit of that. So I think, right, he does not let the grass grow under his feet, as they say.
You know, one of the really fascinating numbers, and I'm sure you've seen this chart, whether you go back to Bush 41 or Clinton or Bush 43 or Obama, Trump the first go around, Joe Biden, the deportation numbers were significantly large. I know we're still early in the administration, significantly larger in all of those administrations than they are right now for the Trump administration. And the number of court challenges to those those deportations were zero.
Right.
And now it's every day you're getting a new challenge in the courts.
Yeah, it's a double standard, and I think that's largely because of who appointed these judges in the courts who seem to be practicing law as lawmakers as opposed to judges in robes. And that's always been a risk of our court system.
No, you've got a big day today, a busy day today, and a big day tomorrow. Certainly we will be listening. Congratulations. This has got a really cool opportunity, and look forward to hearing all about it after the fact as well.
Appreciate that. Appreciate talking about it, having the opportunity to talk about it, Richard. Thanks for having me on, man.
You can hear more about Gerard's plans today starting at 10 o'clock. Middays with Gerard Gibert every day here on SuperTalk Mississippi from 10 until 1. Mandy Gunasekara joins us coming up next. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. This segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Want to know what's being said in the halls of the Capitol? You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good to be with you on this Monday morning, the start of a new week, the 21st of April. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Appreciate Gerard stopping by this morning, and glad to have Mandy Gunasekara with us this morning as well. She is former Chief of Staff at the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, and also is an author. In addition to her work in government affairs, her book is titled Y'all Fired. Check that out. You can get it wherever you buy books. Good morning, Mandy.
Hey, good morning, Richard.
I want to start with a question that I asked Gerard a second ago and ask you and kind of get your reaction on this. If you had to assign a letter grade for the first 3 months of this new Trump administration, what grade would you give them?
I'd give them an A+, actually. I mean, frankly, the first week or so, the president really, it was night and day between the last administration and this administration. And it's a culmination of the fact that he never really stopped thinking about what he could do and the people around him, and then the collective conservative groups that support, thinking about what could be done to get the country back on a better path. Consistent with the America First vision on day one. And so really the first couple weeks with the issuance of executive orders, I think he really laid important groundwork to initiate key functions and actions across the entire government, directing various agencies to engage in efforts that he had long talked about. I'm most familiar with the Department of Energy, the Department of Interior, and EPA, but really strategizing and laying groundwork to get important initiatives underway that have begun in earnest.
Gerard gave a B, and his reason for that was related to tariffs and kind of the uncertainty that goes there. I guess I might have a cop-out answer, and I feel like an incomplete is what I would give. It's like, I feel like we need to see where things go with the tariffs. I'm okay with allowing that to play out and see if it nets the result that we're looking for. When are these trade deals going to actually begin? And I can't decide if the chaos, and I think I mean that complimentarily, is a good thing for this administration because it just has your head on a swivel, or if the chaos is actually a lack of organization.
Yeah, I think it's the president is doing something he's long talked about when it comes to tariffs specifically. And I would hold true with my A+ even when it comes to tariffs, because I think one of the best things about President Trump as a leader is that he actually follows through with what he says he's going to do, not just on the campaign trail, but from a policy objective position, something when it comes to tariffs specifically he's been talking about for over 40 years. And I really think a lot of the market dynamics, this is a recalibration of a market, markets that have been propped up by, money printed by the Fed at their behest, and not necessarily indicative of the dispensation of value. And this is what the president is trying to do. And he's trying to make sure, as the markets are recalibrating, that value prioritizes things that are important in this country, primarily the reindustrialization of certain areas of the country where we have the people, the wherewithal, and a lot of other derivative benefits, such as environmental improvement, more efficient energy use, and local job creation, but really putting that front and center. And so, yeah, there's going to be a change, but I think it's a positive change. It's positive opportunity based off of what we've seen for the prevailing 10 to 20 years. And yeah, a lot of people, certain people have made a lot of money off of an injection of capital, but that has been to the detriment of, as the president talks about, the forgotten men and women of America, or the main streets, little towns that were once bustling with productive activity that withered away because that investment and those opportunities went elsewhere due to the negative consequences of free trade.
And I guess that's been the argument pretty consistently of Scott Bessent and others that are related to kind of putting together our economic policy and where we are. This idea that we're not going to forget about Wall Street, but our focus is not as much on Wall Street as it is on Main Street, which sounds like, I mean, that sounds like a campaign cliche, if we're being completely honest. What does that mean in actuality, in reality, though? We're not going to focus as much on Wall Street. We're going to focus on Main Street. What does that look like if it works properly?
Yeah, I think it's the onshoring of industrial activity. It's also the lowering of income tax, maybe shifting towards more of a import consumption based tax versus taxing a import consumption tax versus taxing things like income and the generation of value. And what that ultimately does is that brings in more dollar value for the pockets of Americans, and real income can actually increase. And so those are better investments, better opportunities, better stabilization, better schools, all the things that go along with stabilized capital at the local level. And when it comes to Wall Street, Wall Street's, I would argue that they are much more flexible to deal with a dynamic to volatile, if you will, market conditions. They're much more versatile to adjust to that and figure out ways to find a way to live and thrive versus what's happened in Main Street, where the tools of productivity basically shipped out and went away, and the people were left there with virtually nothing. And so you've seen this emptying out of Main Street. So in action, I think it's everything from the president's policies, certainly the tariff, but his tax policies and the effort to really onshore and bring investment back into these areas. There's also things like, Richard, you may recall from his first go round, they're revamping these efforts, but opportunity zones. So areas that historically have been unattractive to capital investors for a variety of reasons. Some of those reasons are environmental issues. So areas that have been the holdings of long-term pollution. Capital investors don't want to park a lot of money or investment there because of the derivative consequences of that. Anyway, they're creating new incentives to, on a macro level, bring this investment in, and on a micro level, apply this in areas that have been devoid of opportunity because, frankly, the local, state, or national government hasn't coalesced resources to get in there, fix it, and create these new opportunities to shift the balance of generational, a problem among generations without having access to true opportunity. So I think it's very consistent with the president's chief focus on his economic policy.
You've mentioned environmental regulations a couple of times. Obviously, that's in your wheelhouse because of the role that you played working as chief of staff with the EPA. One of the things that Trump talked about was deregulation, kind of writ large, getting rid of the red tape. Has he done enough of that in the first 3 months, or is there work still to be done in terms of deregulating and making this a more user-friendly climate for investment and for bringing back some of those jobs that you were talking about a bit ago?
Yeah, deregulation is a huge piece of it, and he's done immense work. That's what, going back to what the president's role really in deregulation is, it's announcing executive orders that direct the agencies that actually have the power to get rid of red tape and to reduce the size and scope of the Federal Register, which is the bulky document where all of these regulations are ultimately published and then applied to the impacted stakeholders, whether it's businesses or individuals or consumers, what have you. So the president has done a really great job directing that, and his cabinet officials, Lee Zeldin, who's the administrator at EPA, you've got Secretary Wright over at Department of Energy, and Doug Burgum at Interior. I mean, they have not wasted any time. Now, the thing with regulations, and I think you're smart to wait and see, a lot of the hard work takes time. On the deregulatory front, the fastest really that you're going to get some of these major regulations off the books, it's a year. But you've got to set the vision and you've got to work on day one, because you're going to deal with things like litigation, delays, technical analyses, the stuff that takes a really long time. But they are, I would say this, the political staff, it's good for the American people, tough for them. They're stretched thin, but they're stretched thin because they're doing a lot of this hard work that takes time, and they know how to do it, and they're going to ultimately get it done to where the American people feel that relief.
Well, I think the timeline's concerning, right? Because, I mean, you are a year and a half from midterms, and they get to you quickly, and how is that going to allow you to govern? Last thing for you, so many executive orders. What's your level of concern in terms of governing via executive order versus legislation because of the staying power piece of it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think if you want to prevent a pendulum shift like we've seen, you've got to have Congress back up some of these actions. If they're statutorily derived, meaning they come from a law passed by Congress, and you want to change them, you need Congress involved in the relative change. Now, the one thing President Trump is doing that could be long-lasting that's different than previous administration approaches are these structural changes. So shrinking the size and scope of various agencies, shutting them down altogether, or rolling them into other agencies. Things like USAID being parked at the State Department. The Department of Energy, they're talking about enveloping some of their roles and responsibilities into places like HHS and other departments where it makes sense, but getting rid of the centralized department and returning a lot of that to the states.
Mandy, hold that thought. Let's finish this up on the other side of the break. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi, visiting with Mandy Gunasekara.
The inside track on Mississippi politics. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
She traveled all around, all across this country.
Continuing our conversation with Mandy Gunasekara. She's former EPA Chief of Staff, author of the book Y'all Fired. It's about streamlining the operation in Washington, D.C. and in the federal government. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. Mandy, thanks for hanging on through the break. We were talking about governing through executive order versus through legislative action in Congress and the difficulty that goes along with that, because if you have a change of administration, as we saw with when Donald Trump came in this time, executive orders overwrite previous executive orders or undo previous executive orders. I think you were explaining that the way President Trump has gone about this should at least lead to some lasting change as opposed to the way some of the orders were put in place. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would define it into two categories. There's the policy changes, and then there are the structural changes. And the biggest difference between his approach this go round is fully embracing structural changes. And what I mean by that is this either getting rid of or enveloping entire agencies or departments, or even within certain departments, shutting down certain operations. And the filter by which this has all been done, I talk extensively about this in my book, so it's a wonderful thing to see, but it really is, do the operations of XYZ office or XYZ sub-agency actually complement or contribute to the substantive fulfillment of the agency's stated mission? And the president has a lot of legal authority because agencies are a creature of statutory derived delegations of authority. The authority of the agencies, this is actually power borrowed by Congress, given to them by Congress, but it has to be tied to that specific purpose. So the president going in and making clear that at EPA, for example, they have this whole new office called Environmental Justice, something the agency already does from a policy perspective. The Biden administration created this new sub-agency basically to funnel taxpayer dollars down to some of these third-party groups that had nothing to do with environmental protection and vulnerable communities, which is what they pretended like they were doing. But nonetheless, he shut that down and he has good authority to do that. So making those changes, shrinking the size and scope of the federal government, having a clear picture of expenditures along the lines of the Department of Government Efficiency, these are the things that will make his changes more lasting than the last go round.
Mandy Gunasekara is my guest. Just a couple of minutes left this morning. This story with Kilmar Abrego Garcia goes on, and we saw the senator from Maryland make authorized, unauthorized trip to El Salvador over the weekend. Apparently there are 4 more House representatives that are visiting El Salvador today. Representative Maxwell Frost, Maxine Dexter, Robert Garcia, and Yasameen Ansari. You had Chris Van Hollen on Fox News Sunday yesterday with Shannon Bream. Take a listen to this particular line of questioning. I want to get your reaction.
Who did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
He was not ready for the so taxpayer dollars paid for this. Yes, like all of the rest of them. Have we ever seen anything like this where you have opposite party legislators going to a foreign country arguing against the wishes of the administration?
And the wishes of the American people. I was checking the stats this morning. 50% of Americans want all illegal criminals. They want them deported, and so they're going against the will of the American people. It's interesting. He said this was an official trip because this is just a political stunt. And I don't know if they've done it before. I mean, you certainly remember AOC going to the border, the last Trump administration, and crying at the fences. They do these type of stunts all the time. I don't know how often they go to a foreign country to meet with a gang member who's beat his wife to try to be sympathetic. Arguing for something that the majority of the American people, they want those people out of this country because they have been the ones dealing with the consequences. I mean, look at Maryland. He's got all sorts of criminal issues, and a lot of it is directly tied to the fact that millions of illegal aliens came over the border during the Biden administration totally unchecked. So yeah, it is frustrating to see, but it's a political stunt. I'm not surprised by it, and it's certainly one in. And you have willing mainstream media that just wants to focus in on this story to try to paint what the president is doing in the worst possible light. But I think most Americans see through it.
Pretty interesting contrast when you think about the fact that Chris Van Hollen never went to the southern border to see what was going on when the Biden administration was in power, and yet now he takes a trip all the way to El Salvador on our dime. Mandy, always appreciate the time. Great visiting with you. Thanks for the insight this morning.
Yeah, good to be with you, Richard. Thanks for having me.
Mandy Gunasekara on Mornings with Richard Cross, former EPA Chief of Staff, works in government affairs, and she is the author of the book, Y'all Fired. We're going to take a time out. The 8 o'clock hour is coming up. We've got news for you next. We'll get into some more of these stories and things that are happening over the weekend going into this new week, and JT Mitchell will be by for the last half hour of the show to talk about some news headlines and what we should be looking for this week. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. C-Spire text line open to you, 601-879-4395. C-Spire, inspired by you. 8 o'clock hour coming up next.
Keeping Mississippi in the know, one morning at a time. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just after 8 o'clock with you on this Monday morning, the 21st of April. Welcome to the start of a new week. For those of you that are just getting out of the house, jumping into your cars this morning, you're headed to work, you're getting the kids to school. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. We appreciate it very, very much. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. You can join the conversation on the C-Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Again, 601-879-4395. C-Spire has you covered with the best in wireless the best in wireless coverage. Wherever you go, your C-Spire phone will work exactly the way you need it to with nationwide 5G coverage. They've got the best in home internet. They call it fiber to the home. Up to 2 gig speeds coming into your house, which means blazing fast internet to take care of all of your needs. You're streaming more than you've ever before. You're watching things on your phone. Your kids are playing video games. You got movies going. All of that, no trouble, no downtime, fast speeds, and, of course, the best in IT services. If you're a business owner and C-Spire is not one of your partners, probably time to rectify that. Learn more online at cspire.com. C-Spire, inspired by you. We had Gerard on in the first hour. We remind you that tomorrow, MidDays with Gerard Gibert will be at the White House complex tomorrow to mark President Trump's first 100 days in office. Gerard will be sitting down with cabinet secretaries and top administration officials for insightful conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. And then one more thing to put on your calendar for the week. Sports Talk Mississippi will be at Northwest Mississippi Community College in Senatobia on Wednesday. They will be there for the celebration of champions, honoring an incredible year of success. Volleyball, football, cheer, dance, and women's soccer with national and conference titles across the board. C-Spire text line, Cross, there is no school today. There is in some places, including in Oxford, where my kids are on their way to school. But yeah, you got a lot of kids that get Monday after the Easter weekend off as well. So if you get that extra Monday, congratulations. Enjoy it. Good morning to sleep in. And if you don't, well, thanks for being with us. So, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. There's a lot there. You go back to Friday. This may have been Thursday. I think it was Friday. Donald Trump, in a Truth Social post, sitting at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, holding up a picture of the left hand of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And he says, this is the hand of the man that the Democrats feel should be brought back to the United States because he is such, quote, a fine and innocent person, close quote. They said he is not a member of MS-13, even though he's got MS-13 tattooed onto his knuckles. And two highly respected courts found that he was a member of MS-13, beat up his wife, etc. I was elected to take bad people out of the United States, among other things. I must be allowed to do my job, make America great again. That was on Friday from the president. I think there's enough public record that we can all agree that there is not a criminal conviction on the record of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The debate as to whether or not he is part of MS-13 seems silly. Like, there is enough evidence within the local Maryland legal system and in the federal system from arrest reports that show pretty clearly that he is an MS-13 gang member. So, on top of that, you have his wife doing an interview with, I guess it was Good Morning America. Michael Strahan was doing the interview. And Michael Strahan asked the wife of Abrego Garcia about her situation and why she filed a protective order against him 4 years ago. Take a listen. This is not exactly here's a question and here's an answer.
I have to ask it. You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
Husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Okay. There
you go. You took out a protective order, a temporary restraining order against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband? Her answer was, my husband is alive. That's all I can say.
It seemed a little dodgy, huh?
You think? And then we had yesterday on Fox News Sunday, I played this for you a few minutes ago. We'll run it back one more time. It's a really short clip. Senator Chris Van Hollen, who paid for the trip for you to go to El Salvador to try and spring Abrego Garcia from the clink?
Did pay for this trip?
This was an officially cleared, congressional trip, cleared on a bipartisan basis. Yes, like every other trip.
Yes, like every other trip. Taxpayer dollars. Although James Comer, chairman of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, might push back on that idea just a little bit. He sent to the Honorable Robert Garcia and the Honorable Maxwell Frost, who had requested the opportunity to go to El Salvador. Dear Representatives Garcia and Frost, I write in response to your letter of April 15th requesting that I approve from the committee's budget official travel for you both to visit the country of El Salvador to meet with a foreign MS-13 gang member and whose wife accused him of crimes and who is strongly suspected of human trafficking. It is absurd that you both displayed active hostility for over 2 years toward the committee's oversight of the Biden border crisis and the consequences of millions of illegal aliens entering the country, yet now you are seeking travel at committee expense to meet with foreign gang members. You may be pleased to know that a Democrat Senator, Chris Van Hollen, was photographed just yesterday in El Salvador enjoying margaritas garnished with cherry slices with the foreign gang member your letter references. If you also wish to meet with him, you can spend your own money. But I will not prove a single dime of taxpayer funds for use on the excursion you have requested. Your request is denied. Sincerely, James Comer. And yet, Representatives Garcia and Frost are reportedly in El Salvador today, presumably on their own dime, or, I don't know, maybe George Soros's. What is lost in all of this? Thomas in Greenwood brings it up. To me, there are two things that are here. Thomas says, why not bring him back and then deport him to silence the critics? Well, the difference is right now he's being held by El Salvadoran authorities. If you simply deport him, he would not necessarily be arrested when he gets to El Salvador or whatever country to which he is sent. By the way, he's not in the mega prison in El Salvador. Fox News reporting yesterday that Kilmar Abrego Garcia, more than a month ago, was transferred to from the country's notorious mega prison, Centro de Confinamiento del Terrorismo, or CICOT, before Chris Van Hollen ever got to El Salvador. So Abrego Garcia is now in Centro Industrial in Santa Ana and was moved 8 days prior to Van Hollen making his political journey to El Salvador. So, Thomas, to your point, fine, we'll bring him home. But Caroline Leavitt and others in the Trump administration have said, for those of you who think he's coming home and he's going to live a safe and happy and productive life going forward, forget about it. It's not happening. If for some reason Kilmar Abrego Garcia is brought back to the United States, when he gets off an airplane, wherever he lands, there will be ICE agents waiting for him, and he will be arrested for being illegally in the United States, and he will be deported. And much to the chagrin of Chris Van Hollen and so many others that say, this is someone from the, I don't think they've called him a citizen, but this is someone from the United States. This is a Marylander. Actually, no. This is an El Salvadoran who is here illegally, who is suspected of gang activity. There's all the evidence in the world to point to him being a member of MS-13, and he's in the country illegally. Even if he comes back to the United States, he's going to turn around and leave just as quickly as he gets here.
Know where the news is going next. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Good to be with you on this Monday morning. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. News of the day, Pope Francis has passed away. Elected to the papacy on March 13th of 2013 at the age of 76. Passed away early this morning, 7:30 Vatican time in Vatican City April the 21st. Born in Argentina as Jorge Bergoglio. Pope Francis joined the... he was the first pope that was a Jesuit. Jesuit is a member of the Society of Jesus, a religious order founded by St. Ignatius Loyola. His election marked many other firsts. A native of Argentina, first pope to be elected from the Americas, and the first from the Southern Hemisphere. Also the first pope to adopt the regnal name Francis. Through the 12 years of his papacy, Pope Francis canonized nearly 1,000 people. That includes 813 that made up the Martyrs of Otranto. 813 people who were killed on August 14th, 1480 in Italy. Also canonized St. Junipero Serra, a Spanish priest who established 9 missions on the west coast of the United States in what is now California. Just some historically significant facts about Pope Francis's tenure. He issued a letter revising the Catechism of the Catholic Church's teaching on the death penalty. Professor of bioethics at Creighton University, Charles Camasey, says Pope Francis continued the recent tradition of previous popes, including that from St. John Paul II. He stopped short of calling the practice of the death penalty intrinsically evil, a term frequently used in Catholic moral theology. Instead, using the term inadmissible, saying it was an attack on human dignity. Story at Fox News points to his guidance during the COVID pandemic. Italy, being one of the hardest hit areas in the first months of the pandemic, saw thousands of deaths. On March 9th, of 2020, Italy went down into lockdown. There was a message to the world in March of 2020 from the Pope. And J.D. Vance actually referenced the homily that the Pope issued around the time of COVID, finding it incredibly powerful. And he traveled all over the world. Now, we've seen popes make lots and lots of trips, but he went to new places, being the first pope to visit Iraq, Mongolia, Myanmar, and the UAE. Visited the Central African Republic in 2015, becoming the first pope to enter an active war zone. He created 163 cardinals from a total of 75 countries. As part of the College of Cardinals, it is the College of Cardinals that will elect the next pope. Look, many of you that are listening across the state of Mississippi and beyond are Catholic. And so somebody said, you said he was 76. Was he 76 or 86? I said he was 76 when he was elected pope back in
2014, wasn't it?
2013. He was 88 at the time of his death earlier today. I was saying, many of you are Catholic, and you have a much deeper understanding of the role of the Pope within the Catholic Church. You have a much deeper understanding of Catholicism than I do. But it really is interesting to me. Whatever news source you go to, whether you go to the Associated Press or the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or Fox News or CNN, this is the headline story everywhere you go. And my assumption is if you go to the London Times or you go to the Florence Gazette in Florence, Italy, or, the Rome Tribune or Obviously, I'm just making up names of papers. It's the headline there as well. It is the global story this morning. And the tributes to Pope Francis are pouring in, as is normally the case. I mentioned the visit of J.D. Vance yesterday. I don't know if it's a strange coincidence or there's something more there spiritually. Yesterday being Easter Sunday, J.D. Vance got an audience with the Pope. There are some that are saying, the Pope refused to visit with him, and there's some that are saying there was just a photo op, and I don't know. I wasn't there, neither were you. But J.D. Vance shook the hand and sat with and visited, at least briefly, with the Pope yesterday. And posted on X this morning, I just learned of the passing of Pope Francis. My heart goes out to the millions of Christians all over the world who loved him. I was happy to see him yesterday, though he was obviously very ill, but I'll always remember him for the homily he gave in the very early days of COVID. It was really quite beautiful. May God rest his soul. Very publicly, J.D. Vance and the Pope had, can we say they sparred a bit? There's some back and forth. J.D. Vance, a relatively new Catholic convert. He has talked openly about that publicly. But he has also pointed to differences that he has with some of the teachings of the Catholic Church, some of the directives of the Pope, and what he believes as Vice President of the United States and politically elected here. And yet there was still a meeting, even if there was disagreement between the two men yesterday. Just an interesting backdrop to the death of Pope Francis just, less than 24 hours later. You can join the conversation on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. 601-879-4395. Lance, is there anything that I've missed on the story of the Pope's death?
No, I mean it seems to me like you covered it well. 2013, he was that was the year he was in.
Right.
Made it to 88. Is that correct? 86. I'm sorry, 86.
No, 88.
88. Okay,
he was
that's
76
right,
when
76,
he was elected to the papacy, and 88 at his passing.
What do you? And I know that they go through the process, but what is the average time on the turnaround once you have a pope that is deceased, and then the smoke comes out? Is it usually about a week, or is it?
I don't know. I
can't remember yet.
I think it takes different amounts of time. Mm-hmm. So all the cardinals will descend on the Vatican. Mm-hmm. Vatican City, smallest country in the world. By the way, it has a wall.
It has a wall.
Just so you know.
Got to tear that down.
Keeps people out that aren't supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
It really is a
novel
beautiful
concept.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful place. I was in college and had the opportunity to visit Rome, and I mean, you literally you're crossing the border of a country when you step from the streets of Rome into Vatican City, and you look around, and obviously you can tour the Vatican and go through that and see all of the history there. It's an incredible place. And that was actually a Sunday morning when I was there, and it was. I'm not making light of this at all. We went to church on Sunday morning while we were in Rome with a local Christian church that was worshiping there, and while walking to church, I saw the Pope Mobile go by.
Really?
Yeah.
The little glass bubble on top. Too.
It's the Pope Mobile. That's the Pope. And then after church that day, exploring Rome, and decided, hey, let's go check out Vatican City. And there was the Pope from his window giving the Sunday homily to the crowd that was in the square in Vatican City. And I don't know. I joked isn't even the right word. I was like, so I've gotten absolution from the Pope. Don't know exactly what that means, but there you go. Obviously, this is a big, big story across the world today. Passing of Pope Francis. We're back with you after this.
Things happening here in the state. Just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Thanks again for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. JT Mitchell makes his weekly stop by from the Super Talk Mississippi news team. He is our news director. Good morning, my friend.
Hey, Richard. Good morning, man. How are you?
Doing well. Good to be with you. I know it wasn't really this way in the capital city, but much of the northern half of the state getting rain, kind of a line of thunderstorms making its way through, chance of thunderstorms all throughout the state of Mississippi today.
Yeah, so right now, like you said, North Mississippi is seeing some. We just got this in about half an hour ago. The National Weather Service has issued a marginal risk for different parts of Mississippi, and it goes pretty south all the way up to just south of Tupelo. So that means there could be damaging winds. There could be hail up to a quarter size. That's going to be from 3 p.m. until 10 p.m. It goes everywhere from Poplarville over to Natchez, through Jackson, over to Meridian, and then up just south of Tupelo. 3 p.m. until 10 p.m. You could have severe weather. Just be weather aware, as we always preach.
So moderate risk, not super concerning. Just kind of keep a heads up. This is not one of those serious threats where we've got this massive amount of cold air colliding with hot air, and they decide to fight it out in the skies, and we get all the collateral damage.
Yeah, hopefully.
And by the way, that is a very meteorologically scientific description of two fronts colliding.
That's right, and that's why you have this show, for your meteorology efforts.
No,
Either way,
that's not why.
Be weather aware from 3 p.m. until 10 p.m. Hopefully no tornadoes. We've had a ton of tornadoes this year, but as of now, it's looking like we're only going to see some severe storms, possibly a little bit of hail, and possibly some damaging winds.
You know it snowed in Denver this past weekend?
Not terribly surprised.
No, I know. You get that. You get that late April kind of last-ditch snow that comes through. A lot of the ski resorts have closed already. So,
and in 23, it was a record snow year for that part of the country. I believe it was, because when we went out to Utah, we were there for July 4th, and you could still see snow on the top of the mountains.
Yeah. I've been out there in the summer before where, you take one of the lifts to the top, and people are hiking and doing the bike trails and whatever, and pushed off to the side. There's a big pile of snow that they shoved it all to one area and it still hasn't completely melted. So it's kind of a unique thing to see. Hey, something we talked about in the early part of the show this morning, at the beginning of the 7 o'clock hour, kind of keeping an eye on DeSoto County. We've talked about the redistricting efforts. You had the 3-judge panel at the federal level that has kind of pushed the redistricting effort back to the lieutenant governor, the governor, the secretary of state, the attorney general. And the deadline for that redistricting map submission of the Senate districts that include Hernando and kind of Quitman, Tunica, Coahoma counties, that's tomorrow. So it's going to be interesting to see how that story plays out.
Yeah, you're right. They gave them a week, and that was 6 days ago, and you got to get it done. There are special elections looming this November. And for people out there that don't know what we're talking about, there was a 3-judge panel on the federal level that took a look at Mississippi's maps for the Senate and said, hey, you guys need to redistrict. Our panel believes that there is a dilution of black voting power in certain parts of the state. And so this past session, lawmakers were given the chance to do it themselves. And they went in there, both the House and Senate, And they got it done, and they got it mostly done. It's really just the DeSoto County area that the panel went back and said that needs to be done again. And so tomorrow's the deadline, and it's the State Board of Election Commissioners who has to propose the new map. So the lawmakers already got their chance. Now it's the State Board of Election Commissioners to propose their new map, assuming it will use the rest of what the lawmakers did, except for DeSoto County. And DeSoto County, you may recall, they were not pleased with it in the first place. Right. They hired, their board of supervisors hired legal staff in the case of taking it to court. You know, I don't know if they'll get what they want. I honestly don't know what they want, but it has to be done. The feds are saying it has to be done, and tomorrow, Tuesday, April 22nd, is the deadline to do so.
Well, the crux of the argument from the Board of Supervisors in DeSoto County seems to be it doesn't make sense for our senator from DeSoto County that represents Hernando being elected or not elected by people that are not part of the Hernando area, going down into Quitman County, Tunica County, Coahoma County as well. And that seems to be the crux of their argument. But ultimately what the judge said is, hey, these district lines have to be representative of the population that is there, and there need to be more majority-minority districts. And so Hattiesburg, they were okay with the way that one was redrawn, and DeSoto County still sorting it out. So we're going to keep an eye on that. Municipal elections are tomorrow. I don't know that anyone has beat the drum for participation in municipal elections and the runoffs more than you have, Mr. JT Mitchell.
And I'm going to keep doing it. I've had conversations with people who have a lot more power, because I have none, but a lot more power than me. And they're trying to get the word out to people to vote. And I ask, what is the answer? Why do we keep having such bad turnout? And nobody knows. And so, in my opinion, if you push it on all fronts, if you talk about it in all walks of life, you can get people to the polls. You just have to get the word out there. And, we keep going back to Secretary of State Michael Watson saying that these municipal municipal elections are the ones that really matter. Of course, all elections matter, but the people who run your city and the people who serve on your city council, your board of aldermen, whatever form of government you have, those are the ones who are making decisions that impact you first.
And none of those elections are more headline grabbing than the one in our capital city of Jackson, where the mayor's race is in a runoff, and it appears as if, in terms of high-profile endorsements, folks are lining up behind Senator John Horn. Last week, we talked about this, got an endorsement from Benny Thompson, the congressman that represents part of Hinds County. And also, we have seen a number of business leaders in the Jackson community get behind John Horn and say he's the best chance for us going forward.
That's right. And from my perspective, both the incumbent, Mayor Chokwe Ntarlamumba, and the challenger, State Senator John Horn, have at least some momentum that they've built up between now and when we had the primary on April 1st. You just mentioned a lot for Senator Horn. I mean, he's received endorsements from local businessmen, Gabriel Prado, New Horizon Church senior pastor Ronnie Crudup, Congressman Benny Thompson. That one is huge. And then former Ag Secretary Mike Espy. And a lot of people are talking about that. A lot of people are talking about how Horn has raised over $100,000 in the last 3 weeks alone. But then, if you get into some other circles, people are still talking about the incumbent. This race is not over. That's why we have a runoff tomorrow. Yeah. And Lumumba has received endorsements from 3 former candidates, David Archie, Delano Funches, and James Hopkins. He also claimed during a press conference on Friday that several other former candidates are working behind the scenes to help him out. And if you remember, Richard, we had 12 Democrats run in the primary for Jackson mayor. So
what do you anticipate turnout being?
Bad.
Maybe, but give me a number.
We had north of 20,000 people in the Democratic primary on April 1st. I'd say it's, just ballpark a little bit north of 10 to 12,000.
Wow.
And that is in the largest city in the state. So I hope it's better than that. I will come in here and be the first person to eat crow if the turnout is amazing, if the turnout is higher than the primary. But either way, in a city like Jackson, this Democratic primary is really, the likelihood is whoever wins tomorrow will be the next mayor.
So if either candidate were to garner 10,000 votes, it feels like a slam dunk that they win this runoff.
Slam dunk. And you have to remember that John Horn was only like 1.6% away from avoiding this runoff. The incumbent got 17%. 17%. That means 83% of voting Jacksonians voted against the current mayor. That being said, though, there are 27 other cities that will be holding municipal primary runoffs tomorrow. We can go over that list on the other side of the break if you want.
And JT keeps up with American Idol so that you don't have to. Or maybe you do too. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi. We're back to wrap things up after this.
Pour yourself a cup of coffee and get the Magnolia State's most important news of the day. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Many of you had Friday off for Good Friday. We celebrated Easter over the weekend, and some folks with Monday off as well. If that is you, congratulations. If you're back to work, we appreciate you being with us for the start of a new work week. Alongside JT Mitchell and Lance Talbert, I'm Richard Cross. This is Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi. We cannot run out of time without your now weekly American Idol update.
Oh, man, here we are. Jamal Roberts, you've probably seen him out there. If not, watch tonight. The show is at 7 o'clock Central.
Okay.
Jamal Roberts, he's from Meridian, 27 years old, a PE teacher. He teaches PE at Crestwood Elementary, and he has just been making a fantastic run on season 23 of American Idol. Last night, he found out that he advanced from the top 24 to the top 20, and then he sang to try to get the fans' vote to get him into he was in the top 24 last night, sang to try to get into the top 20, and Lance has that audio queued up.
Forever is a long time. Forever is a long time, yeah. But that's how long I love you. You don't have to worry about a thing because I love you forever.
And he can hit those high notes.
First-year judge Carrie Underwood compared Roberts' performance to the metallic disco suit that he was sporting, while veteran judges Lionel Richie and Luke Bryan agreed that the aspiring star took the crowd to church on Easter Sunday. Underwood said, "Your talent is as sparkly as your outfit. That was a joy to listen to and watch." Lionel Richie said, "That was outrageous singing. I don't know who possessed you, but if that's the Holy Ghost is always going to be with you. Yeah, you got the magic. What I love most is that it's current and old school, too. You are slaying it."
And he is.
So he's number one right now in the American Idol Top 20? Is that right?
We just put him up there because he's from here. There's no order in terms of who's ranked right now.
So this is a biased poll?
No, we're just putting him at the top so people know
Well,
who
you got
to vote
him at
for.
number one.
I would assume most of our readers are from the great state of Mississippi, and if you are, go vote. Vote for Jamal Roberts. And you read that Lionel Richie quote. Last week, Richie said, "Man, I'm telling you what, if you brought an offering plate to me after you sang, I'd give you all my money.
So tonight they're going to narrow it to the top 14.
That's correct. Thank you for clarifying. Top 20 came out yesterday. Tonight will be narrowed to the top 14. And man, we have had...
So voting is closed already, or is it still open?
Voting is closed for last night. You watch tonight, hoping Jamal Roberts makes it, you'll get another chance to vote, send him to the next round. You know what? Let's just make him the winner. So if you tune in from here on out until next month and vote up to 30 times a person, I'm sure the listener base of this show can help make Jamal Roberts the next American Idol.
Okay. I like it. I don't know that we're going to run through all 26 of them, but give me a couple of highlights on the municipal elections that are coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, we talked about Jackson, but there are plenty. So if you live in Baldwin, Bay St. Louis, Belzona, Biloxi, Clarksdale, Columbus, Diamond Head, Durant, Ecru, Farmington, Greenwood, Gulfport, Hernando, Holly Springs, Horn Lake, Houston, Magnolia, Meridian, Morton, Moss Point, Newton, Okolona, Pascagoula, Senatobia, Tupelo, and Woodville. You said we won't go through all of them.
Hey, Lance, maybe we are going to go through them all.
You have to know if you live in one of those cities. Go to the polls tomorrow and exercise your civic duty.
Mose says he's sticking to the prediction that he made after the primary that John Horn will take 65% of the vote tomorrow.
It's not a bad prediction. If you think about it, 83% voted against Lumumba. However, there's only 2 now. And so you just got to wait and see, because Lumumba has been hitting the trail harder in the past 3 weeks. He has made more media appearances in the last 3 weeks than probably the first 3 months of this year combined.
Chad in Van Cleve on the C Spire text line says, Richard, how somebody in Mississippi speaks so clearly like JT? People tell me I mumble. I disagree. I kind of mumbled that. How do you speak so clearly, JT? That is the question that Chad in Van Cleve wants to know. Have you trained yourself?
Sorry, Chad. Yeah. Lots of training, lots of journalism work. But sometimes I feel like I'm mumbling at home. Maybe it's just when I get behind a microphone.
Just when he unplugs. When that microphone light comes on, JT becomes the great enunciator at SuperTalk Mississippi.
I need you people to know what I'm talking about.
We love you, JT. Thanks, as always, for coming by. Have a great week.
I love y'all, too. Thanks, guys.
JT Mitchell, he's the news director with the SuperTalk Mississippi news team. Lance, thanks for making it in on time on this Monday morning.
Hey, I'm ready, baby. I couldn't miss this.
You're always on time.
Close enough, close enough.
We hope that your week gets off to a great start today. Thanks for being with us on this Monday morning on Mornings with Richard Cross. Don't forget, tomorrow from 10 to 1, Gerard will be in Washington, D.C. at the White House complex, the Eisenhower office building. Going to have some cabinet secretaries and other high-ranking Trump officials on the show. You can learn more about this morning on MidDays with Gerard starting at 10 o'clock. Keep it locked in to SuperTalk Mississippi. Have a great Monday.
SuperTalk Mississippi media production.